A large-scale Russian drone and missile attack on Kyiv killed 6 people and injured at least 52 others overnight.
US President Donald Trump announces 25% tariff on India and unspecified penalties for buying Russian oil.
Like France and the UK, Canada and Malta have now also announced they will recognize the state of Palestine in September.
A Russian drone and missile attack on the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv killed at least 6 people, including a 6-year-old boy, and injured 52 overnight, Ukrainian authorities said Thursday. The head of the city's military administration said the number of injured in the overnight attack was likely to rise. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the main target of the strike was the capital and that it inflicted significant damage on residential buildings and areas. At least 27 locations across Kyiv were targeted, with Russian strikes also hitting 4 other Ukrainian regions, with some 300 drones and 8 missiles. Russia has continued to bombard Ukraine with attacks, despite US efforts to broker a ceasefire deal. On Tuesday, US President Donald Trump expressed frustration with Russian President Vladimir Putin and shortened a self-imposed deadline for a truce from 50 to 10 to 12 days.
US President Donald Trump announced on Wednesday that he plans to impose a 25% tariff on goods from India and an additional import tax because of India's import of Russian crude oil. In a post on social media, Trump accused India of being Russia's largest buyer of energy at a time when, quote, everyone wants Russia to stop the killing in Ukraine. The U.S. leader criticized what he described as India's strenuous and obnoxious trade barriers. The sanctions on India come amid Trump's threats to impose tariffs of up to 100% on Russia's trading partners if President Vladimir Putin doesn't cease hostilities in Ukraine. India relies on Russia for around 35% of its crude oil imports, reaching a 2-year import peak in June of this year, according to local media. It also imports an estimated $80 billion in Russian military equipment. Trump on Monday presented a new shorter deadline of 10 to 12 days for Russia to agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine.
European Union member states wish to take advantage of a European loan program to invest in defense. The Commission has said that the total money requested so far adds up to €127 billion. The institution welcomes the interest shown in the loan program and says it demonstrates the European Union's unity and ambition in security and defense.
This is a national decision, so member states are free to decide if they want to take loans to increase their defense spendings or not. We are satisfied, of course, with these 18 initial member states. We're convinced at the same time that more member states will express their interest. Commissioner Kubilius is in touch with them, and he is pretty confident that this figure will increase.
The European tool called the Security Action for Europe, also known as the SAFE instrument, was adopted in May. It provides loans of up to €150 billion for defense. The funds will be raised on capital markets and distributed to interested member states upon demand. For some member states, it is more attractive to borrow through the Commission rather than turning to the markets themselves. The aim of this program is to stimulate production capacity on the continent. This tool should also help fill the gaps in defense capabilities. Canada and Malta both announced on Wednesday that they will formally recognize the state of Palestine in September. It follows the same announcements made by France and the United Kingdom, who also said they would offer formal recognition at the United Nations General Assembly that month.
Canada has long been committed to a two-state solution. An independent, viable, and sovereign Palestinian state living side by side with the state of Israel in peace and security.
The move to recognize Palestine as a state comes amid a renewed push in Europe to put pressure on Israel to stop its devastating war on Gaza. Malta and Canada's announcements came as high-level representatives met at a United Nations conference on a two-state solution, which Israel has opposed to and therefore boycotted the meeting. Like Israel, its close ally, the United States, also decided to boycott the UN conference.
A complaint against two Israeli soldiers who were accused by an NGO of violating international humanitarian law in Gaza has been referred by Belgian authorities to the International Criminal Court, ICC. The soldiers had been identified at the annual Tomorrowland Music Festival in Belgium by the Hind Rajab Foundation, a Belgium-based pro-Palestinian group. According to the Belgian Federal Public Prosecutor's Office, two complaints were filed earlier this month against the two Israeli soldiers. On Wednesday, the prosecutor's office said it had decided to refer the complaints against the two members of the Israeli military to the ICC. The decision to question the two Israelis was based on an article in Belgium's Code of Criminal Procedure that went into force last year. Israeli authorities did not immediately comment on the action by the Belgian prosecutors, but Israel has always maintained its forces follow international law, tries to avoid harming civilians, and that it investigates any allegations of wrongdoing.
The European Union has failed to agree on cutting Israel from research funds in response to the war in Gaza. The EU Commission's proposal needed a qualified majority of member states, but Germany and Italy, two of the largest countries, said they needed more time to examine it. Although not an EU member, Israel has full access to the Horizon programme, the biggest worldwide, as an associated country. The Commission has proposed a partial suspension.
This would focus specifically on the European Innovation Council Accelerator under Horizon Europe. What is this exactly? This is the part of the funding program where we fund startups, including Israeli startups that participate in projects that have a dual use potential. So disruptive technologies can be drone, can be quantum, can be artificial intelligence. And this is the part that is affected by the Commission's proposed suspension.
Under the current budget, Israeli entities have received around €900 million from Horizon Europe. If it is cut from the programme, Israel could lose €200 million of funding. But the EU would also lose.
Of course, we always lose. We want to collaborate with third countries, and this is precisely why Horizon Europe is also open to researchers, universities, students from third countries. So, of course, our objective is to collaborate. Now, this decision was taken as a reaction to the review of Article 2 of the EU-Israel Association Agreement, and projects where grant agreements have already been signed will continue.
The European Commission accuses Israel of breaching its human rights obligations, while the UN warns of catastrophic hunger in Gaza.
One of the strongest earthquakes ever recorded struck off the coast of Russia, injuring several people according to local authorities. The 8.8 magnitude earthquake had its epicenter around 119 kilometers from the Russian city of Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky, on the Kamchatka Peninsula. Tsunami waves reached as high as 10 to 15 meters in some sections of the coast there, according to Russia's Oceanology Institute. Local scientists say they expect aftershocks with a magnitude of up to 7.5, and that more tsunamis are possible near the regional capital. The head of the area's health department said several people were hurt as they left buildings. A local kindergarten was also reportedly damaged. All those who were injured are reported as being in a stable condition. Authorities in the Kurils Islands of Russia's Far East introduced a state of emergency following the tsunami. While no substantial damage has been reported so far, authorities are warning people to stay away from the shorelines.
What impact will the trade agreement between the European Union and Washington have on European households and businesses? Most European products exported to the United States will be taxed at 15% from 1st of August. But residents of Brussels say they aren't so worried about their purchasing power.
I think tariffs are counterproductive. I think I prefer free trade. And I think it's self-damaging to the Americans to bring in tariffs on anybody and everybody.
I think the EU depends a lot on the US in many ways, and we should probably become more independent and develop our own economic strategies more independently from the US.
In the short term, the impact of US tariffs on European consumers should be limited.
European consumers is going to be limited. And why is that? Tariffs or duties are paid by the importer. In this case, this 15% tariff that the US is imposing on EU products apply to the American importers. So that means that certain things might become more expensive for the American citizens.
In the long term, Chinese products currently exported to the US could find their way to the European market, which could lead to lower prices in Europe.
The primary effect will be less demand for European products in the US, and less demand for Chinese products in the US, and that means that these products will then try to look for a market in Europe, which generally will lead to lower prices.
European companies exporting to the US are likely to face a drop in demand on the other side of the Atlantic, which could lead to a decline in their revenues and potentially jobs in Europe. US President Donald Trump hopes that foreign companies will be encouraged to open factories in the United States to avoid paying tariffs. However, concerns around Trump's predictability and the uncertainty surrounding the duration of these tariff barriers could conversely discourage European companies from investing in the United States.